Why men hide their vulnerable side from women they love. Let me tell you something that most men will never admit out loud. There have been moments, quiet moments, usually late at night, where a man is lying next to the woman he loves, and something is eating him alive. Could be fear, could be the weight of feeling like he's failing, and she's right there. She's literally right there. And instead of saying anything, he stares at the ceiling, takes a slow breath, and says, "I'm fine," when she asks what's wrong. And she knows he's not fine. And he knows she knows. But neither of them says anything, and they both go to sleep carrying something heavy. That moment, that specific moment, is what I want to talk about today. Because I think a lot of people, especially women who love men deeply, are confused by this. And honestly, some men are confused by it too. They don't fully understand why they can't just open up to the person they trust most in the world. Why vulnerability feels easier with a stranger on the internet or a buddy they haven't seen in 5 years than with the woman sleeping beside them. It's not simple. It's not just ego, and it's definitely not because he doesn't love her. So let's actually dig into this. The first thing you need to understand is that most men were never taught how to be vulnerable. I mean that literally. Think about how boys are raised. From the time they're small, there's this invisible curriculum being handed to them by the world. You fall off your bike, you're told to shake it off. You cry at school, someone calls you soft. You show fear, and the message you get, sometimes spoken, sometimes just felt, is that you're doing something wrong. That emotion is a weakness, and weakness is dangerous. Now, nobody sits a little boy down and says, "Hey, you need to hide your feelings forever." It doesn't happen that explicitly. But the lesson gets learned anyway, through 100 small moments, through watching their dads, through how their friends react, through movies and TV shows where the hero never breaks down, never admits he's scared, never needs anyone. By the time that boy becomes a man and falls in love, he has spent decades, sometimes literally his entire conscious life, practicing emotional suppression. It's not a choice at that point. It's almost a reflex. Feeling something big and uncomfortable and immediately finding a way to push it down. Distract yourself. Move on. That's the default setting for so many men. And then someone comes along who they love. And that person says, "You can tell me anything." And they want to believe it. They genuinely want to. But the habit is so deep. The walls were built so long ago that they don't even remember building them. Here's another layer to this that people don't talk about enough. Vulnerability in front of a woman he loves is terrifying in a very specific way that's different from vulnerability with anyone else. Think about it from his perspective. This is the woman whose opinion of him matters more than almost anyone's. This is the person he wants to be strong for. The person he wants to feel safe with him. If he breaks down in front of a random friend, the stakes feel manageable. But in front of her, in front of the woman he's trying to be a man for, the fear isn't just embarrassment. It's something deeper. It's the fear of being seen as less, of her love shifting, of the way she looks at him changing. There's this thing that happens in a lot of men's minds, where they've connected their worth as a partner to their ability to be solid, unshakable. If she sees him fall apart, part of him genuinely wonders if she'll still want him. Not because she's given him any reason to think that, just because that fear is baked into how he understands what it means to be a man in a relationship. It's irrational. He probably knows it's irrational. But knowing something is irrational doesn't always make the fear go away. And let me be honest about something else that's uncomfortable but true. Some men have been burned. Not all of them. Not even most. But enough. They've had a moment where they opened up. Really opened up. And it didn't go the way they hoped. Maybe the woman they told didn't know how to hold it and said the wrong thing. Maybe they sensed a shift. Some micro-expression of discomfort or even pity that made them feel worse than if they'd stayed quiet. Maybe she brought it up later, during an argument, and it was used against them. And that experience, however isolated, becomes evidence. Evidence that the risk isn't worth it. That staying closed is safer. This is why I think it's so important to understand that when a man in a relationship pulls back emotionally, it usually isn't indifference. It isn't coldness. It's protection. He's protecting himself, yes, but he might also be protecting you from something he thinks you can't handle, or protecting the version of himself that you see, because that version feels necessary for the relationship to survive. Now here's where I want to speak directly to the women watching this, because I know a lot of you are watching this because someone you love does exactly this, and it's painful. It's genuinely painful to love someone and feel like there's a door they won't open no matter how many times you knock. The instinct is to push, to ask more questions, to say, "Why won't you just talk to me?" or "I'm not going to judge you," or "You can trust me." And all of those things come from a real and good place. But a lot of the time, those approaches make it harder, not easier. Because pressure, even loving pressure, triggers the same response in him. The walls go up faster. What actually tends to work is creating the conditions where he doesn't feel like he's being observed or evaluated. Men very often open up when they're doing something else. Driving somewhere, sitting side by side on a couch, watching TV, working on something together. There's something about not being looked at directly that makes it easier to say real things. It sounds strange, but it's true for a lot of men. The face-to-face, let's talk about your feelings conversation is the format that feels most like an interrogation, even when it's not meant that way. Also, and I cannot stress this enough, the way you respond the first time matters enormously. If he says something real and vulnerable, and he's met with advice when he just needed to be heard, or he's met with, "I knew you were feeling this way," which can feel like a gotcha, or he's met with your own emotional reaction that he now has to manage, he files that away. He thinks, "That didn't work," and the door closes a little more. But if he opens up even just slightly, even just a crack, and he's met with calm and warmth and genuine listening, he remembers that too. You're essentially teaching him over time that it's safe. And that takes patience that honestly most people struggle to have. Let me also speak to the men for a minute, because I don't want this to just be "here's why men are the way they are, women please accommodate them." That's not fair, and it's not the whole truth. Men hiding your vulnerability doesn't protect you. I know it feels like it does. I know the logic feels solid. If I don't show weakness, nobody can use it against me. Nobody will think less of me. I stay in control. But here's what actually happens. The stuff you don't express doesn't disappear. It goes somewhere. It comes out sideways as irritability or distance or emotional numbness. It creates a wall between you and the person you love most. And over time, that wall makes intimacy impossible. Not just emotional intimacy, all of it. Because you cannot selectively numb. You can't stay closed off emotionally and fully connected in every other way. It doesn't work like that. And there's something else. The version of you that she falls in love with, the solid, unshakable version, that guy is real. But he's not all of you. And if she only ever knows that version, she's not fully in love with you. She's in love with a performance, which means you never get to actually feel loved, because the part of you that's loved is curated, protected, filtered. Real love, the kind that actually sustains you, requires being seen. The messy, uncertain, scared, imperfect version of you, that's the one that needs to be known and accepted for love to actually land. Vulnerability isn't weakness. I know that sounds like something on a motivational poster, and I know it rolls off easy, but I want you to think about the men in your life you actually respect the most. Not the ones who are loudest or most put together or most in control. The ones you actually trust. Chances are they're men who at some point showed you something real, said something honest about their struggle, admitted something that cost them something to admit. That's what makes a person trustworthy. That's what makes connection possible. There's also a strange paradox here that's worth naming. The men who are most afraid that showing vulnerability will make a woman love them less are often the ones for whom the opposite is true. Because a woman who genuinely loves you, not the performance you, is usually not waiting for you to be perfect. She's waiting for you to be real. She's tired of talking to the wall you put up. She doesn't need a hero every day. She needs a partner. And partners show up fully, not just in their strongest moments. I want to close with something that I think often gets missed in these conversations. This isn't just about men and women. It's about what we all carry when we love someone and can't find the words, or the safety or the courage to show them who we really are. The stakes feel so high. The relationship matters so much. And somehow that very intensity, the love itself, becomes the reason we hide. Because if this person rejects the real me, that's something I can't recover from. So, I keep the real me under glass. Safe. Never tested. Never fully seen. But here's the truth. A life where you're never fully seen is a very lonely life. Even when you're with someone. Maybe especially when you're with someone. The work, and it is work, is learning to trust that love isn't as fragile as fear tells you it is. That the person who chose you wants to keep choosing you. All of you, if you'd only let them. That's the conversation most couples never have, and it's the one that changes everything. If this hits something real for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one.